Hello and welcome to this edition of How to Make Beats and the History of It and Such Things. We're going to start with a little snippet from Sample This, which is a documentary about sampling and the birth of hip-hop, beat making, and such things. So here we go, with DJ Kool Herc, considered the godfather of hip-hop, explaining how beats and hip-hop as we know it came to be.
Apache also inspired Herc to come up with the innovation that would give birth to hip-hop.
They're waiting for this particular break, and I have a couple more records that's got the same breakup in it. I wonder how would it be if I put them all together. And I told them, I said, I'm going to try something new tonight. I'm going to call it a merry-go-round.
In order to keep the block parties and the dancing going into the night, he would isolate the breaks on records, then use two different turntables to play them back to back.
I had to come in with bongo rock. Still no vocals in it, and I was going to. Oh, I think we got some hair, you know, 'cause people was like, oh, whoa, everybody was like, yeah, I'm feeling this, oh, yeah.
DJs would extend those two breaks into one extended break, and you could make it last for 15 minutes.
That was the pinnacle of the party. That was the climax of the party. You would go through the different genres of music and the different kinds of music up until you got to that part where Apache came on.
So this documentary is really showing us how important and pivotal DJ Kool Herc's merry-go-round technique, which really was the inception of hip-hop and beat making. So DJ Kool Herc, August 11th, 1973, debuts the merry-go-round technique, which is considered the birth of hip-hop culture, and really more so the birth of hip-hop beats and beat making. It was a DJ technique where he's using two turntables, right, as you could see, where he was playing either two copies of the same record or two copies of different respective records, but playing the break or breakdown section of the record. I have here the Apache break. Now, the break is going to end, and you can kind of see it on my screen here on Ableton. I'll go ahead and zoom in so you can see it a little better. So I'm literally just playing this break section by triggering it with my pad. And you can see it here. Now it's going to get to the end of the break, and instead of letting it end, I'm going to re-trigger it as if I had dropped in the break on the other record, meaning this record is finishing up playing, it's about to end the break, it's about to go to the main song, this part, but instead I re-trigger with this one where I play again and manually loop by playing the break section on this record. Meanwhile, I'm cueing this backwards, the first record I played, and then, so effectively you're manually looping. Now what happens is thereafter, we have the use of digital samplers, which allow me to do what I'm doing, right? Just take a small section of a record and to loop it or play it again and again. But then you also have drum machines like the TR-808, which is now used for modern hip hop and trap and that kind of stuff. And so you can program your own drums. And so really the foundation, the basis of hip hop, of beats as we know it, and really most electronic music and popular music is all really derived from hip hop, which is also based on using funk, disco, rock breaks, break beats, or the breakdown section of the record, which breaks down to just the kind of stripped down heavy drum beats with kicks and snares and hi-hats that you have that you can now program. So now I'm going to program a break on my step sequencer on my MIDI controller here. I got kick drums, I got snare drums, right? And so my kick drum, I have a 16th note grid here. It's set into 16th note mode, so each one of these steps is a 16th note. A beat is a quarter note. It's 1/4 of a bar. So, for example, in 16th note mode, if I put my kick drum, I select a kick drum, this one here, and I put it on the 1 and the 3, if we count it out, if we turn the metronome on, it counts 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. and then I have a second bar here. I'm just going to make it a 1-bar loop. Okay, so I've created a 1-bar loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now my tempo, or the rate, the speed, the tempo of the song is 100 BPM. I'm going to bring that down to the mid-90s, which is like an old school hip-hop tempo, 92 or 93. Now, if I go from 16th note mode to quarter note mode, watch what happens. It shifts here because these subdivisions are now, instead of being 16th notes, they're quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. The kick drum hits on the 1 and the 3, right? And same thing with Billie Jean. I'm going to program Billie Jean break. Snare drum goes on the 2 and the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the basis for most, like every hip hop song ever, just about, unless it's in like a 3/4 time signature. So 99% of the music that we listen to on the radio goes in counts of 4. It's in 4/4 time signature. There's 4 beats per measure, and you're using quarter notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, to give it a little more flavor, a little more variation, you might add more kick drums. But the first thing I'm going to do before I do that is I'm going to go from quarter note mode to 8th note mode in order that I can have 8th note hi-hats because they play twice as fast. So I'm going to select a hi-hat, this one right here, and I'm going to add 8 8th notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and where the 1 is here, so it's 1 and 2, the 2's there, 3 is here, 4 is there. Kick, snare, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and my little green cursor shows me where I am in the bar. This is the first beat right here, and it's also the first 8th note, second 8th note, third 8th note. Now if we put it into 16th note mode, we get finer subdivisions. So you can count it as 1 E and 2 E and if I add hi-hats there, contrast it to 8th notes versus 16th notes. It's faster, right? But typically the old school hip hop is going to have 8th notes mainly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and Now I'm going to go back to my kick drum. And I'm going to change the color of my kick drum so we can kind of see it a little better and understand what's going on. So I got my kick drum on the 1, and I'm going to put it on, let's see, go to 16th note mode. I'm going to put it on the and here. 1 and 2. Boom, boom. This is kind of like We'll Rock You. Boom, boom, da, boom, boom. So if I put one here, boom, boom. I'll mute the hi-hat. 1 and 2. 3 and 4. Now, when you're making beats, you also want to think about the drum sounds that you're using, the timbre of the sounds, the type of the beat you're going for. If you're making a boom bap beat, you're probably going to want more organic, real sounding drums, versus if you're making a trap beat, which is kind of more new genre of music, even though it uses the old school drum sounds, you want a different tempo usually, and you also want different kinds of drum sounds. You also have slightly different drum programming, but I'm going to just show you with this. So now we have kick, snare, and hi-hat. I'm going to add a little more flavor to it. I'm going to add some syncopation, because hip-hop is about the funk, it's about syncopation, not being completely on beat with your kick drums. I might change my kick drum over here, move it from the and to the E. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and so that's actually the Now, I can also add on a sample on top of that if I want to, but traditional boom bap usually uses, old school hip hop makes use of samples, and so I have a chopped up sample here that I've divided into quarter notes or beat length. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4. So that's 2 bars. I can play just 1 bar over and over like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and I can play it out of order to kind of start to do sample chopping, or sample chops to kind of create a new melody or new pattern. So let's record it over my drums. And so I've recorded that. I'm a little bit off beat here, you can see on my screen. So we can hit the quantize button and watch what happens. It snaps to the grid. You can see these first notes that I have here. This is a 1/4 note, a 2/4 note. You can even see here it tells you 1, that's beat 1 and bar 1, the very first one. And then 1, 2 indicates it's the first bar, but the second beat. So this division shows us here's the second beat, here's the third beat, 1, 3, the fourth beat, 1, 4. Then 2 indicates bar 2, and then 2, 2 indicates we're in the second bar. All this is the second bar. This is the second beat. Now here on beat 3 and the and of the 3, I have 2, again, it's the 8th note, 2, 3, 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Yeah, so this is these are 2 8th notes and 2 8th notes there. So I give it a little more rhythmic variation, a little quicker, right? Now I can use what's called an auto filter, say, to kind of cut off the frequency and play with the sound a little bit. So I'll turn that on. So I'm cutting off the frequencies, the high frequencies. But I can add LFO here, make it go in and out faster or slower. And I can bring it back in like that. That's just another technique we can add to kind of make it a little spicier, add more, kind of make it a little more interesting. Now you don't have to, on a boom bap beat, use a sample. You could also use a synthesizer, for example. So I have a synth here, I can play scales. So I have a harmonic minor scale. I can play melody. Melody is a series of notes that's recognizable and has a rhythm, or an identifiable rhythm and a sequence of notes to create a tune, a melody, right? So we can record that over the drums. Now I might create a bass line to go along with it, like as a harmony, right? I have a sub bass here. So now I've recorded that in. You can see the notes here on the piano roll. Right, if we go back to the drums, you can see the rhythmic notation. My kick drum, right, which is this, falls on the 1 and the and there, right? And then we have the hi-hats consistently on the 8th notes there. And then we have the snare on the 2 and the 4. Now, even though it looks like this snare drum, is it this one? Yeah, is this one. Even though it looks like it sustains or lasts for a whole beat, it's not actually true. It probably only goes right until around there. So I hit play, and then I shorten this note. You can see the snare drum hasn't changed in length. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to solo this. There's no difference between those two. If it was a longer sounder snare drum, it would make a difference. In this case, it doesn't. Okay, so let's unsolo my snare drum. Now we have the drums. We have a bass, which creates a harmony with the melody. We might fill it in kind of maybe with some, I don't know, some kind of pads or strings or something like that. So I have a synthesizer, another virtual instrument here that I can use. This is a piano one, but I can probably pull some pretty funky or cool kind of, let's see, wind keyboards perhaps. Let's try this. Let's try that. So now I've recorded that on the fly. And the cool thing about the program that I'm using and the equipment that I'm using, Ableton Live, is that it's really meant for live performance, but also for composing in the studio. So I can record really rapidly, as you've seen, and just make beats on the fly. So right now I'm in note mode, where I can play discrete, separate notes, even if they're rhythmic patterns with the step sequencer. These are discrete and separate. However, if I go from note mode to session mode in Ableton Live, the name of this program is Live, it's made by Ableton, you can see all of my patterns or loops here are represented by these different little flashing lights. So let's say I want to start with the melody. I hit this effectively stops it. It stops it from flashing, it turns it off, right? So I can hit play, and I can even record this to arrangement from left to right If you hit tab enabled, then you can see this is arrangement mode. This is what most beat making programs go from left to right, linear. This is the nonlinear mode that's made for jamming or recording or playing loops, but you can just turn them on or off and record in linear mode. So I'm going to record in linear mode. We're going to arrange the song. You're going to see it happen on the fly, and you'll be able to see me turning the different patterns on or off here. I'm going to start with my melody. So here goes the melody. And you can see it recording here. Now I'm going to bring my bass in. Now I'm going to bring my drums. I might take the drums out for effect. And this, we can think of this maybe as the hook section. So I'm going to take the catchy melody or the hook out in a second. And this might be a good part for someone to rap on, right? The hook is kind of where you say the chorus again and again. That's what gets stuck in your head. I might even go to the auto filter and start to pull this out for the verse even more. So I'll turn the auto filter on. Maybe add some effects on it, and then I'll bring the melody back in. Drop the drums out, maybe. Maybe bass out. And then I'll bring it all back in and take the melody out here. Now I might start to peel away the layers to parallel the beginning of the track, right? Take the drums out. Maybe bring the melody back in, take the bass out. Now you're hearing glitch on there. I have a little glitch effect on here that's going off. And I'll end with the melody, which is what I started with. And when I'm done, I'm going to turn it off by hitting this button. And it ends. And now I've, on the fly, live composed a track that has a beginning, middle, and end. It has a hook or a chorus, which is the melodic section. So that's one way of making, that's like an old school beat. Now, if I wanted to change the feeling of it or change kind of the style, I could change it from an old school beat to say kind of more what we call it like a trap beat, more contemporary hip hop by bringing the tempo down to say the low 70s or high 60 BPMs. Listen to the tempo now. And when we bring in the drums here, it's much slower, except we can do some double time drums, like double time hi-hats and that kind of thing. So I'm going to go here to my my drum pattern. Go back to this mode. Let's see where we have this. Okay, so I'm going to go into my drum programming here. And I might add some double time hi-hats. You can see on the grid, I'm going to add some eighth note hi-hats, right? And so when we play this, I'll make these shorter because they don't actually sustain that long. Watch what happens. You can see there's 16th notes happening there, right? And we might even add some, say, 30-second notes. Oops. Let's make this shorter. Actually, I have to change the grid here. So I'm going to make it 30-second notes. It only wants me to make 16th notes. So I'm going to add 30 seconds. I'm going to add some 30-second notes in here. And then let's see how that kind of affects the feeling. And then the other thing that's kind of notable about trap or like a lot of contemporary hip hop is that it'll have 64th notes for this kind of glitch sound, but it'll also have triplets as well. So if I go to triplet grid, it's going to, let's see, do a triplet grid in 16th. I'll add a 16th triplet here. And maybe I'll add, let's see, let's go to some 30-second notes as well. The other thing that you'll often hear is like what's called like an 808 kick drum. It's this really low sub-bassy kind of kick. And I can actually probably pitch this up even. Go here, transpose. Sounds like that, but we can pitch it down. So that's plus 23 semitones. Let's bring it down. Let's see, 12 is an octave, so minus 12 is 11, I think. We can bring it down this way till it's minus 1. It's so low you can't even hear it, right? So let's try. Let's try adding it in. And that's recording over my other drums, so I prefer not to do that. But you get the idea in terms of that. Now, the other thing is that you can have track will often be a double time. So I'm at 67. It might be instead at what is that? 134. 1660 is 120, 14, 134. Yeah. But then you have to spread out your drums twice as much, right? Because it's going to give it kind of more of a double time / halftime kind of contrast. However, if you're making house music or techno music, you would have it at that speed, but you'd also have what's called 4 to the floor, which is where you have kick drums on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I might go ahead. I'll go over here. And I'm going to change the drum programming here so that I have a kick on the 1, 2, 3, and 4, and not as much syncopation happening there. A consistent 4 to the floor kick beat. Boom, 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 boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. And instead of hi-hats there, you usually have like syncopated hi-hats on the ands. So it'll go 1 and 2 and 3, and those ands are upbeats. So that creates syncopation in itself. That's why you have boots and cats, right? The boots is the kick, and then the hi-hat, and the cat is the snare drum along with the hi-hat following after it. So let's go ahead and let's try that. And oops, that's way too fast. So let's program it as eighth notes. And so here now we'll do it like this. So kick drum on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's even just start with just the kick drums. Get a consistent 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, I'm going to add this kick drum as well on top. So I'm going to put that on the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we get in hi-hats. Boot, 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 like that, right? You can hear the eighth note hi-hats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then we get out a snare drum in on the 2 and the 4. Now that might be somewhere between like 120 something up to like 130 something for house or techno. So I'm taking the drums out again. If we bring the tempo back down, you get back down to about like the high, well not high, below 100, 107. This is when you get back into like funk, hip hop, you know, that kind of tempo. And I'll take the bass out. And then just for little style points, I'll add some effects to kind of bring it out. So when you're making beats, you're really thinking about like the drums. I think about the drums as the skeleton. If we're thinking about a beat as a body, the skeleton is the basis. It's what holds the beat up and holds it together, and it's really the fundamental part that creates structure. And then melody, harmony, samples, etc. to me are kind of like the skin and the organs and that kind of thing. You add them on after, but typically you have some kind of repetitive rhythmic beat that is the driving force, because hip hop started, as we saw with DJ Kool Herc's, playing the breaks, the breakdown section of the record, which is the drum break. And that's why we talk about breaking, as we call it in hip hop culture, or break dancing. You dance to the drum break, to the breaks. And that's the most classic break you could almost possibly come up with, the Apache break. Now, there was a hip-hop producer named Salam Remy who took this and he played different parts of this song and kind of remixed this classic song that was a classic breaking song and made a new hip-hop beat out of it for a rapper named Nas, Made You Look. So he's re-triggering a section of the quote-unquote break, but it's got the melody and harmony. He pitched it down because originally this was actually it was pitched up higher. I don't know if it was exactly that, but and I can't tell you how much fun it is to play the different sample chops. And then you play them over drums, and you got a hip-hop beat, you're set. I'm going to delete these ones right here. Play my drums, and then play my sample chops over it. Let's bring the tempo down. That's just for style points, because hip hop really is a lot about style. There's substance to it as well, but it's all about your style and how you present things. Making things dope, making things fresh, making the party people want to dance like you saw at the beginning of the video. That's what it really has to do with. And you really can see that in terms of house music, all forms of electronic music, which really, anything that's come after hip hop is influenced directly by hip hop and by beat making. So the practice of making house music follows hip hop and the inception of hip hop and hip hop music in the 1980s, the mid 1980s, comes from disco, which is where hip hop came from as well, playing disco breaks in the tradition of the disco DJ mixing records. Then you have techno, which is like the kind of dirty industrial cousin from Detroit, whereas Chicago produced house music, Detroit produced techno. It's kind of this slightly grimier, more industrial version of house music, right? And kind of it's the Detroit interpretation. Drum and bass comes from England, from Great Britain, right? And is a mashup of kind of like more hardcore, heavy electronic music, like really faster stuff. But then they started introducing break beats and double time funk breaks, double time breaks that would have been used in hip hop, including the Amen break, which is a famous gospel break. And that's a whole nother history unto itself that we can go deeper into. But everything that's come after hip hop in terms of popular music has been influenced by it. especially by the hip hop aesthetic with loud drums. Nowadays, even in country music, you hear snaps like that on the 2 and the 4, which really are a reference to, contemporary R&B, trap, hip hop, that kind of thing. So it's really, I think, we can't understand popular contemporary music without understanding hip hop and its incredibly impactful influence on it. So my name's Dr. Elliot Gann. Thanks for watching this little presentation. I'm executive director of Today's Future Sound. We're a nonprofit based in Oakland, California that does work around the world teaching beat making and using beat making and hip hop culture as a culturally responsive mental health and educational intervention. We're really into beat pedagogy and teaching beat making, which is grounded in hip hop culture, which was started by disenfranchised, marginalized Black and brown youth, African American and Afro-Latino youth who had little to no resources. And so you saw DJ Kool Herc, who emigrated from Jamaica in the 70s, came over and brought Jamaican sound system culture and the tradition of DJing in Jamaican dance hall and reggae music, the tradition of toasting or talking over the records, but also essentially playing breaks as well, playing rhythms, right? Instrumental and vocal versions of reggae records. So he brought that and kind of combined with the disco culture you saw in New York, funk, and soul music. James Brown, massive influence. Goodfoot led to, was kind of a precursor to breaking or breakdancing. So moves taken from all over, but hip hop really borrows, samples, recontextualizes and remixes things from all over and creates something new out of it. So we can think about hip hop as remixing both on a metaphorical level, but also on a concrete, literal level, where it takes anything that it thinks is good and repeats it over and over. It takes the best part of the song, and in this case, the break, but that's with a lot of delay on it. So if you'd like to reach out to me, you want to learn more, you can contact us at info@todaysfuturesound.org. Check out todaysfuturesound.org. Also check out our weekly Global Beat Cipher, #Global Beat Cipher, CYPHER, where we share music from around the world and have beat makers from around the globe remix vintage songs from around the world. Just check out our website. You can check us out on Instagram at Today's Future Sound. We're on Twitter, TFS_BEATS. You can check us out on YouTube, Today's Future Sound. Same as Facebook, just look up Today's Future Sound. Thanks, Dr. Elliot Gann, aka Philip Drummond, signing off.